Hello again, YouTube. Just walking up to church this Tuesday morning while I'm still not working at the moment. There's no excuse for not going to church, I think, and kind of messed up because yesterday I fell asleep, completely missed the Ricky Doolan stream that I would have liked to have been in, and so because I woke up at about 9 o'clock at night, I had to stay up a little while to get tired again, and then woke up this morning at, I don't know, probably about 9 o'clock, looked at my notifications, everything on my phone as we do, and then only about 10 minutes ago realised that church starts at 10:30. So I had a decision: do I just call it quits and not go, or do I try and make it on time? So, as you can tell by this video, I'm trying to make it on time. It is very warm. Temperature is dropping in the UK lately, obviously with winter on the way. So I've put my coat on, and now I'm really warm, and it's pretty much all uphill. As you can see here, I'll walk across here, up over the hill. So I'm probably going to get quite warm, but it is what it is. I feel better for going than staying at home, although I do obviously have things to do at home. I'm always trying to be sat at the computer doing something for YouTube in between finding the next employment, because as I've said in other videos, the AI is coming for our jobs. Optimus robots and everything will take sort of warehouse jobs I've been doing. So at the same time, I'm not losing too much sleep, but obviously I need money. So we'll see what happens. I should be starting at a warehouse, but they sent me an email and I didn't see it until Saturday, and then I was out Saturday night, which is still going to be sort of one of the subjects of this video. And then obviously I went to church Sunday and I was editing the videos, so I didn't get round to doing the application till Monday morning, and they have not got back to me, which just goes again to prove why I dislike the labour market in the UK at the minute. I think employment agencies are vermin, and I'm sorry if you work for an employment agency, but the job you do is unnecessary, I'm going to say. Companies should be doing it themselves. They're just lazy, want to save money, so they farm it off to subpar companies to try and get employers, get workers into the business. But anyway, I'll try and make this more positive now. The good things that have happened recently is I've noticed that God appears to be drawing friends back into my life. I don't mean like that they're contacting me every day, etc. But I would say over the last 3 weeks maybe, I keep bumping into old friends who are then very receptive and want to talk to me. Well, sometimes you might see people and they go, "Hey up, you alright?" And that's it. That's how it's said in Yorkshire anyway. "Hey up, you alright? Alright pal, how's it going? You alright? Yeah. See you in a bit." Something like that. And so a few weeks ago I saw somebody I used to hang around with as a child. We used to go out riding the bikes together, and he stopped to talk to me as I was coming out of Errands, which is a food shop for those not in the UK, or a grocery store. And we were talking, and he says he's doing painting and decorating now, and he'll let me know if he needs a hand or something, which was very nice. So that's like maybe the first connection. And then last Tuesday, as I was walking back from church, took the scenic route, walked to my mum's house, and I saw another old friend, and same sort of thing happened. He said he'd just been started a job in the village. He said he'd let me know if they need somebody, which was awesome. He added me on Facebook. And that's another connection made again. I haven't talked to him, not seen him since, but it's a start. Then on Saturday, I was invited out to the pub by an old school friend. The lad who invited me out wasn't somebody I was staying around with at school or even after school, but we know each other. And he's a decent lad. So I took the opportunity and went out, even though I was spending some of the last money I had. But it was networking. I thought God has made him invite me out, for a reason. And then I did make new friends while I was out. One guy in particular formed a good connection with, says he wants to make videos with me potentially in the future, and he has messaged me a few times. And I presume he's at work, so you can't just drop everything to message me back. But it was still good to make a new connection, as well as some of my old connections coming together. And then while I was out, I actually saw another old friend who I thought had fell out with me at one point. I remember messaging him on Instagram and stuff. By hair in my mouth. And he just ignored me. So I thought, well, I'm pretty opinionated. Maybe I've said something that rubbed him up the wrong way. And it's non-confrontational, so he didn't want to argue with me. I mean, when I talked to him, he said he can't remember anything like that. And it would appear that it's just a case that he was on the cocaine a bit too much at the time. And he has stopped now, which is awesome news. It's good to know that he's seen the light. And yeah, so I mean, that's another connection made again. And then just yesterday, what I would describe as my actual best friend, who I've sort of grown apart these last few years, he rang me up. And it was a good conversation. We talked for about an hour while he was on his break. And should see him this weekend, have a catch up, play Borderlands 4. Although he'll obviously have to make sure he's got an extra pad, because I sold my PlayStation to buy this camera that I'm using and some of the other equipment. So I hope he's prepared for that. But it was good during the conversation. Afterwards, I felt really elated, like a big dopamine release into my system, making me know that those bonds that we make and sometimes neglect are really important. And I honestly think that God is doing it for a reason. Not just with me, it's probably happening all over the world. I think in the wake of Charlie Kirk's death, the good people who aren't evil, being drawn back together for this ideological fight. And I'm going to stress that it's an ideological fight. As I've said in other videos, the civil war is not going to be a fun time. I mean, could the UK benefit from such an event? Yes, of course. But I've seen estimates saying that 20 million people would die in a civil war. I mean, do we want to lose 20 million people if we can resolve it in a more diplomatic way? I would say it needs to be the last resort, a civil war. Until such a time that the military involved in unleashing bullets on us, we should try and do it the diplomatic, democratic way. But I'm trying not to get too much into politics in this video. But it was good. We had a good bonding session, talking about some of the events, and even he had said that the death of Charlie Kirk had sort of put things into perspective a little bit for him, and that's why he reached out. And that's the interesting thing with these connections, is I'm not driving it at all. I haven't been reaching out to people. And, some of you watch that and you probably think that's bad. I should be reaching out, and you are correct. I shouldn't be relying on anybody that comes to come to me. But what happened in the past, like say 10 years ago, I got a woman pregnant, and then she aborted it, but then lied to me, told me it was a miscarriage, then eventually told me the truth. So that all mangled my brain, right? And I became incredibly suicidal. And in that period, when I was suicidal, my friends all just kind of gravitated away from me. They would do it back in the day. They would come round to my house on a weekend and hang around with me there. But then once things got bad for me, they didn't want to be around me. And I took that very personal at the time. Very annoyed that I would sometimes ring them up and they'd not answer the phone. And I knew where they were, but I wasn't going to force myself on them. Maybe my ego was to blame, and I'd be like, fuck them guys if they're not going to answer the phone to me. They're going to hide where they are. So I gradually just got to a point where I would not really contact anybody. I would always wait for them to come to me. I'm probably still, an old habit, 10 years old habit now that maybe need to break. And we'll see what happens. Like the whole Christianity aspect is quite new for me. I started believing in God quite a while ago, but I didn't really come to Christianity until very recently, until Charlie Kirk's death. I thought, got nothing to lose by just getting close to Christianity. It's our, I was raised in a Christian country, and yeah, so that's sort of where I'm up to, I suppose. I'm sure it'll still be a rocky ride for everybody in the United Kingdom from here on out. Things aren't going to be simple for us all, but it does, to me, feel like something's coming down the road for us, and we're being drawn together for a reason. And that is part of the reason I'm making sure I go to church. It's more connections, closer to God, community. You need these things in your life. For, the past few years, I've just isolated myself all the time. Spend 95% of my time on my own, if I'm not at work anyway. And, as many of you will know, that is bad for you. Like when I first started these YouTube videos, because I'd spent so much time on my own, I could feel that my brain had started to deteriorate because I wasn't having to talk to other people and form conversation and think about what I'm saying before it comes out of my mouth. And these days, I'm doing YouTube and some of my connections growing. I now feel better, which is good. And I mean, a big part of that is, stopping smoking as much cannabis. There would be times, certainly, like over the Christmas period when I'd be on my own all the time, I'd get some cannabis and just vegetate. But that's not constructive. I'm not going to pour shade on people for smoking cannabis, but doing it sat on your own in your own house with nobody to talk to is probably a net negative in most instances. Sure, it can make you creative. Drugs do open up pathways in your brain, but if you're chronically using drugs every day, all day, it will have an effect. I personally feel much better for not smoking cannabis every day. So, there's some of the aspects of life. Some of this might cross over with my other latest video, but it's to be expected. It's my path forward. I need to be honest and open about my life because that's the only way I can potentially help other people. By being open about your personal battles, your faith, you can help other people. Other people will look to you as inspiration, just in the same way I look to other people for inspiration. It's a good feeling, and as I said in my other video, I do feel very positive these days. That's not to say that I don't get anxiety from doing YouTube. Very much do. There's always this voice in the back of my head saying that video isn't good enough, could have done better, shouldn't be doing this. You're not as smart as these other people that you watch, they're more knowledgeable. But at the same time, I have to conquer that anxiety, not let it stop me, because it's just going to hold me back. And it stopped me a few weeks back. I had a guy saw me with the camera, said he wanted me to contact him for some editing work doing. I just ignored it, and I shouldn't have, because again, that was God giving me a chance to prove myself. But luckily, God doesn't give up on us, even if we ignore him sometimes. God appears to still want to do the best for us, give us another chance. So we'll see what happens from here. And I was up at the church on Sunday. They did say that it's important for people like me who have technological know-how to be involved with the church, because a lot of the older generation, they don't know how to do a lot of this stuff. And by making videos, putting things on the internet, just, I don't know, even if it's just Instagram, showing people the architecture, the history, it will, in some way, draw more people to Christ, which, in my opinion, 90% of the time will only ever be a positive. Of course, there will be, people who identify as Christian and have bad intentions, famous man with a mustache comes to mind. Although, many Christians argue that they weren't true Christians, they had hollowed out a lot of the Christian concepts to replace them with nationalist concepts, which is a fair argument, not something I know a lot about. Well, not something I know as much about as other people, I would say. So I would say theology is definitely an area I don't know much about. Like politics, economics, philosophy, logic are topics I do like, but theology is always one I've neglected for obvious reasons. I spent most of my life agnostic / atheist. And then even now, even when we're learning about theology, I don't think I'll ever debate it. Not like, say, Andrew Wilson does, where he'll debate Muslims on the Trinity, on was Christ the Messiah, or was he a prophet, etc. I personally have no interest in those sort of debates. I'll leave that to the more knowledgeable people. I'll stick to things I've been interested in for most of my life. But still, in my own time, I will still try to learn as much about theology as possible. And I wonder what time it is. My friend has just messaged me as well. Actually, the friend who rang me yesterday has just sent me a lengthy message. I'm not going to be able to read it because church starts now. I'm sure they'll forgive me for being a couple of minutes late. I have tanked it up here, as you can probably see. I mean, I don't know if you can see that on the camera. I am pretty sweaty. Yeah, the coat hasn't helped. But as they say, I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. And as far as I'm aware, that comes from Alien vs Predator. Such a good quote to come from such a not so great film. Hardly the best Alien or Predator film, to be honest. Certainly better than The Predator. And I would say better than Alien. What's the one I'm thinking of? Not Romulus. The one that was released before Romulus. Damn it, it had another name. Damn it. I'll remember when I've turned the video off. That's how this always happens. There's always something an obvious fact that escapes when you're making a video. But I'm at church now. We'll stop this video, put the camera away, and see you next time.